going on to our film discussion, we mentioned some weird, strange but funny experiences with movies. So, Bubba Ho-Tep. Uh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, actually, really quick. Sorry, I always forget to do this. So, for anyone who's tuning in the first time, the gist of the podcast is that I used to have a YouTube show where I would recommend movies monthly and say, here's what I think is really good. You should check it out. I would show footage, and obviously that gets flagged by copyright all the time. And I mean, we touched on it a little bit in hating our own projects, but one thing that I always hated was listening to the sound of my own voice as I was like jiltedly reading off a really, really poorly written script. So, but I still wanted to do film discussions. That's why we have the podcast. So every episode, I recommend the guest a movie, the guest recommends me a movie, and we discuss. So the movie that Cody recommended me was Bubba Ho-Tep. So I guess summarize what this movie is.
It starts out in a nursing home kind of thing where we have a old Elvis Presley that is played by Bruce Campbell, and he didn't actually die. He actually switched roles with an Elvis impersonator, and so he went on to live a very boring life as an Elvis impersonator. He wound up in this nursing home, and then you've got John F. Kennedy, who they took his brain and they put it into the body of an elder African American man and hid him in this nursing home. So the two of them are just kind of living life as old people, and then a mummy that's also Southern because they're in Texas. It starts eating the old people, starts eating their souls through their rectal region because that's the orifice souls must get sucked out of. And so they band together and become heroes once again to stop the Bubba Ho-Tep.
Oh my goodness. It's funny because I mean obviously if anyone's listening is like hearing this summary and hearing us laugh at it. I was watching this movie last night in preparation for the show, and my fiance was kind of like off. I was like at my computer desk with like headphones on, and I was laughing a lot, and she was like, what, is this movie really that funny? What's this movie even about? And I was like, okay, so bear with me. And I basically I explained it exactly how you did, and so there's an Elvis impersonator, but it's actually Elvis, and she kind of like cocked her head to the side a little bit, and I was like, oh no, you're not ready, that's not the weird part. But it's a truly unique experience, and I very much enjoyed it. But yeah, so I mean it's a very fun campy movie, kind of like in the vein you said with like Shaun of the Dead, where it's like it's funny, but it also has its hand in horror a little bit. And I was picking up a lot. I mean, obviously Bruce Campbell's in it, but I was kind of picking up a lot of Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness kind of vibes from the way it was shot and like the way they put it together and what little action there is. It's just a fun campy experience.
I love it for that aspect where it's like those kind of low budget, but it's still like, you know, really like engaging, and like they can kind of add comedy to it because of how bad, you know, the fight sequences are, because these, you know, they're old people.
Exactly.
And just like Elvis with a little fork or like his walker, like just trying to like fight off a mummy. I love stuff like that. And
yeah.
It does have a lot of those vibes, those, you know, those low budget horror vibes where it just kind of, I love it because it's clearly not a movie that's trying to take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
And that's something that with like horror movies, sometimes I'm like, this is a silly premise. This is, you should not be taking this seriously.
Yeah.
But they say it, all of it, like just like in the scene when they're in the bathroom and he's like, it's Egyptian. Like he just just casually knows what Egyptian like looks like. And
I have the Book of the Lost Souls under my bed.
It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, but in the best possible way. Like it's just like it is really it kind of relishes in the fact that it is a B movie, but it has some really kind of surprisingly tender moments. Like, I mean, some might argue out of place, but like really tender moments with like old Elvis kind of like in his bed being like, oh man, did I really make the right decision? I wonder, I wish I could talk to my daughter. And like, I mean, Bruce Campbell does turn out like a really heartfelt, entertaining performance. And I think that is one thing that this has going for it over other sort of B movie things he's done, like Man with the Screaming Brain, or I mean, just like any of his other kind of lesser known roles.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it kind of like, I feel bad for Bruce Campbell kind of thing. Like, I mean, like, I think he does a really good job with, like you said, the tender stuff, and it's like he's bookending. It really is like kind of like carrying the story from beat to beat, because he does have a lot of those reflection moments in the bed, like thinking about like Priscilla, his daughter, and then anybody, you know, else, and just kind of reflecting on the choices he made, and like, you know, because it's like he kind of goes from like, you know, he wants those people back, he wants that like fame back, to being like, I am the hero, I feel the way I want to be, like, you know, he's kind of like redeeming himself. And granted, the ways that it's kind of, you know, revealed physically that he is back to form, is a little silly, but that's just kind of the nature of that. But I always wanted Bruce Campbell to have more like bigger. I wanted him to have that big break kind of thing.
Yeah,
it felt like he never was able to get out of this like B movie thing. Like anything Sam Raimi did, he would like either cameo in or like have a small role. But like Sam Raimi kept trying to get Bruce Campbell like a bigger role. I don't know if you know this, but Sam Raimi did like a comic book movie before Spider-Man. He did a DC movie, and I'm gonna Google this real quick just so I can.
The one thing I don't remember where I heard it, but there was a petition at one point for Bruce Campbell to be the new Batman, just purely because of his jawline and the cowl.
That would be great. Okay, so the movie was called Darkman. And it was about
okay.
When I was thinking of movies to recommend, I thought about this one, because it was a, you know, scientist loses his face, you know, can't go back to his family, but he figures out a way to like shapeshift his face with his science stuff to like impersonate people and get revenge. And Sam Raimi really, really wanted Bruce Campbell to have that role. And Warner Brothers was like, no, we don't think he's, you know, we don't think he has the pull for this. We don't think he can do it, you know, the typical stuff. And they're like, we want somebody we can trust for, you know, to get the ratings for this revenge comic book flick. And you know who they got for this revenge thing instead?
Who'd they get?
Liam Neeson. So before Liam Neeson got that like pigeonholed for revenge movies, he was doing this like revenge comic book thing, and I think that's hilarious. But
that's too funny. So
as like a little jab to the executives and whatnot, at the very end of the movie, Darkman, Liam Neeson is like he like escapes from like the big, you know, scene at the end. Yeah. And he kind of turns to the camera to reveal what face he used to like, you know, blend in with the world. And it's Bruce Campbell. Just getting a little cameo at the end, almost as a big like, you know, middle finger to the execs for being like, I could have done this, you know. So the last scene you get. But yeah, stuff like that. Good. I'm like, Bruce Campbell, so good.
Yeah.
But
he's hilarious too. Like, I mean, he kind of gets like, I mean, like a lot of his stuff is kind of like comedy centric, but he's also like, I mean, like we touched on like his like more like serious kind of tender side of this movie, but I think he really excels in any form of comedy. I mean, just listening to him, like whenever he does a Q&A, he's so like quick on his feet. Like he's amazing.
Yeah. What's interesting was my first like role that I saw Bruce Campbell in wasn't even like one of his B movie, kind of roles. It was him as like one of the supporting characters in a TV show, which is Burn Notice.
Yeah.
Growing up, for whatever reason, I was like really into watching like hour-long like USA dramas. So, like, my first memory is of Bruce Campbell. And now I'm like, then I grew up a little bit and got into like all the B movie stuff he did, and I was like, oh, this is way cooler. I'm like, this makes sense. But yeah, I think he does a wonderful, wonderful job in Bubba Ho-Tep. Mm-hmm. His Elvis impression's pretty good. Yeah. And yeah, the flashbacks where he's both Elvis and the impersonator. So it's like, okay, he definitely,
Right.
I thought that was a nice touch. I thought because I wasn't sure if they would like do like a different person.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
At
like,
first
kind
I
of
thought
throw
it
people
was.
off.
Yeah.
But then it's just Bruce Campbell again. Yeah, I love the when the mummy talks. One, why does he have that hat? That doesn't make sense.
I just like the whole because it is kind of like a weird kind of western, like with like the soundtrack is very this is our last the final showdown, like as the sun sets, kind of like cowboy-esque score, and you have the one senile old guy with like the pop guns and the the mask and all that.
Bang bang.
It is kind of like this weird has this weird western element to it that like you kind of elevate, like takes it from this like kind of horror movie to almost like this like big like as big as you can get with like two old people taking on a mummy, but like it's kind of like it elevates it to like this weird action horror western comedy hybrid. It's just a little bit of everything, and it somehow works.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just love that, and the fact that the only I love the fact that Elvis doesn't believe at first that the old guy is Kennedy.
Yeah.
Even though like it's like you're in just as ridiculous of a situation, and he's like almost like he's crazy. But then it's kind of like it's cool that they finally
come to terms where he's like, hey, how was Marilyn? Like, they have that moment. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah.
Oh man, it's just I guess we can get into spoilers a little bit. I mean, like there's the plot is kind of simple, but I mean, if we want to talk like specific stuff, I guess now is the time to get into it. So if you haven't seen Bubba Ho-Tep yet, go check it out. I was able to see it for free on Amazon Prime. I'm pretty sure you can rent it on most other platforms like YouTube Movies and Google Play and all that. But definitely check it out any way you can. So I was like, I kind of said like I was expecting it a little bit with like the fact that it is kind of played up as like a weird like one last ride kind of western story. But I wasn't like really expecting like him to die at the end, but it is kind of like poetic in a good way. You know what I mean?
Right. Because it's like, where would you go from there kind of thing. Both of them, like, it's...
Right.
No one believes them. They're not happy in their situation, especially Elvis.
Yeah.
He's very much, kind of yearning for that, and to go out as the hero. I think that... definitely is more fitting than him recovering or trying to because there's nowhere to go from that. Like how do you top fighting ancient Egyptian cursed mummy?
Right.
That's also southern.
It's also southern for some reason. It's just the sheer originality to like write that down, and like for someone to fund that too. Like,
right.
There's just some movies that kind of amaze me that they get made at all. Like, it's just, but I'm really glad that this one got made because it is really, it is a fun experience. If you're in the mood for it, it's a very, excuse me, it is a very, a fun experience. Do you have like a favorite, moment overall in that whole movie? Because I think mine is definitely, or like the one thing that I like to come back to, and I have a funny story about this, but I'll wait till the end to share it. But I like the little intermittent moments with like the hearse drivers as they're taking the bodies out. I don't know what it is, but I really enjoyed those moments.
Yeah, those are good. And like, he's like, you ever wonder? And then it's like, no, I just wanted to ask about the deodorant. You know, that was good. I think the moment that made me laugh the hardest was with the when the mummy kind of like is talking to Elvis and Kennedy, and he like speaks it in like Egyptian or whatever, and the hieroglyphics come out, and then like you just see these weird like pictures, and then the subtitles
English comes
below
up underneath.
Yeah. The two times that happened was really good, and then at the end when the stars did the same thing, I thought it was both hilarious, and then like, how would Elvis know what that says? Like, he's just like staring up at this, and it's like, wait, Kennedy was the one that could read
Egyptian.
Was translating the Egyptian, so how would he know?
I mean, I think if we're gonna look at a movie where Kennedy and Elvis fight a mummy in an old folks' home, and you're questioning how would Elvis be able to translate the stars in the sky, I think your suspension of disbelief kind of has to be used up at that point. But it's it's just a fun experience. I kind of I wasn't expecting it to be as funny as it was. Like, I knew it was like a campy B horror movie, but like starting it off, it starts off like kind of really depressing for like the first 20 minutes or so, and then it picks up. Like it shifts genres so many times, but it is like a kind of a really, at least for the first 10 minutes, I found I was like, man, this is like, I hope this turns funny sometime soon, because this is just like end of life hospice stuff is kind of sad, but it pays off really well, I think, in a very satisfying way. Like I didn't want it to be over when the credits rolled. Yeah,
definitely. And what I love about that movie is for the most part it really is it takes place in like one location. Like, there are the flashbacks with Elvis and whatnot, but like for the most part it sustains itself as like a one kind of location. They're in that. Yeah. They're either in that hospice care, or they're like outside of it. Right. And I love movies that don't need to be overly ambitious and go a lot of places to tell a full story. Like, they were, it's like, as that like low budget kind of charm. Yeah. But like, I've always loved like, lower budget movies that can do that. Like Clerks is one of those movies where I'm like, it's just here. They're just the story itself is keeping you engaged, and it doesn't need to go out and do things. But yeah, it's just oddly charming, and just the more you think about it, the more you laugh because of how ridiculous it is. Right. And I was glad that the first character who got taken out by the Bubba Ho-Tep was this old lady who is being very mean.
An asshole, yeah.
like who takes the glasses off of like a person in an iron lung and steals chocolate? And, what are you doing? Like,
it is very. I touched on it earlier. It is very satisfying in all the right ways. The payoff is great. So yeah. Bubba Ho-Tep. Yeah, if you want nothing else but a purely original experience you can't get anywhere else, then definitely check that movie out. But I'll end that portion on this. It was funny because one thing that I do with PBS sometimes is I'll help out with recording their news segments, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but there's a filmmaker that I grew up in like the Bethlehem, Catasauqua area of Pennsylvania named Dan Roebuck, who kind of he was like big into like theater and filmmaking and all that, and then went out to Hollywood and got like bit parts in a bunch of movies. Like, I think most famously probably was The Fugitive, I think. I haven't seen that movie, so I don't know what part it was, but that's kind of like the one that they always say. But he eventually, like in the past few years, he kind of like came back out this way. He was actually also in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, that video game that just came out. I don't remember who he played, but they point being that we interviewed him for the news, and I helped run camera for that. And he has been making these like independent films kind of based out of like the Bethlehem area as of late. He's going into production on a new one this coming spring, so we got to talk with him a little bit about that, and I did like the whole, oh, here's my business card, I'm a freelancer and all that. And it was funny, I had that conversation. I was like, oh man, he's a nice guy, I should watch more movies that he's in. And then I sit down to watch Bubba Ho-Tep, and lo and behold, he's one of the hearse drivers. So I just thought that was so funny. He's the one with like the full, like, I mean, they both had glasses, but the full head of hair, the kind of slightly heavy set one. Who's like, no, I was saying go get the deodorant. That guy. So
nice.
I just thought that was a weird, funny connection where I was like, oh man, wasn't expecting that to happen. And now I wish that I had the chance to ask him about this movie.
Right.
But
that's great how things like that happen. Well, maybe you can like be on the set of the next film he does.
Yeah. And even funnier too, like I think that there might be a slight typecasting element, because the first movie that he made when he came back he was a funeral director. So I don't know what it is. Maybe he just likes working within that that range of roles. But yeah. So Bubba Ho-Tep, see it any way you can. It's, like I said, available on Amazon Prime.
For sure.
You can rent it. I don't know for how much, but it pretty relatively cheap, I think, on like YouTube movies and Google Play and all that. So yeah, I totally recommend it. See it any way you can.